It was Fan Xian's first time attending a celebration organized by Emperor Qing. During the security check at the gate, the guards reminded him that he couldn't bring any weapons into the palace. He had to hand over his needles and poisons. The second prince praised him for being the best student of Phage yet, so he tried to ask him for some poisons. But Fan Xian refused. If something happens to His Majesty and the Crown Prince, I can't take this responsibility. When he entered the main hall, Fan Xian saw that the princess was here. Today's banquet, seeing the princess sitting with us, Fan Xian felt a sense of foreboding. But just as he was distracted, Guobaoquan, who hadn't appeared for a long time, also appeared in front of him. He complained about Fan Xian like a bitch. He said he beat him up earlier. Now he says he doesn't recognize him. Guobaoquan was furious. He threatened to ruin Fan Xian's reputation today. Then they found a place to sit and talk. A man with a weapon entered the hall. He had a cold look on his face. He looked arrogant. He's Yun Jilan, Siguanzhuang's eldest disciple. Fan Xian looked him over. Then the female officer came to Fan Xian. She said the princess wanted to see him. The princess said she's been waiting for him to take revenge. But nothing has happened. Don't worry, Your Highness. I'll give you an update anytime. Then the princess told him, if he joined her, he could marry one heir without any problems. She'll also give him the power of inner treasure and much more. What if I want you to leave Kyoto? As Zhuang Mohan entered the hall, the banquet has already arrived. Emperor Qing will be the last to make his grand finale, although Chen Pingping is in the supervisory yuan. Chen Pingping is always concerned about what's going on in the palace. Yun Jilan has come to the palace with a sword. If he wants to assassinate him, no one will stop him. Zhuge told him that Hong Xixiang is guarding outside the palace. Yun Jilan doesn't have the guts to assassinate him in the palace. At the banquet, everyone was drinking and drinking, but they're all amazingly unique. Fan Xian was the only one who ate and drank. Emperor Gu Qing saw how he ate. He frowned, so he called him in. He said Fan Xian was a brilliant man. He could be of great use. He proposed that he preside over the exams. So he gave Zhuang Meihan a chance to speak up. He reminded the imperial examination is the foundation of the world's scholars. We must be careful in choosing the person in charge. Li Yunrui jumped out after hearing this. He said, is Zhuang Mohan afraid that Fan Xian will outlast him? He's using this opportunity to suppress my editor. Zhuang Mohan had no choice. Say Fan Xian didn't write the 7 words himself. He plagiarized his teacher's work. When faced with Zhuang Mohan's slander, Fan Xian didn't care. So he asked Mr. Zhuang, your teacher's name was due. Mother-in-law pushed too hard, but she accidentally gave Fan Xian the chance to become famous. Emperor Qing hosted a banquet for all the officials. But on this important occasion, Li Yunrui had an affair with a northern Qi literary figure. She wanted to take this opportunity to ruin Fan Xian's reputation. Fan Xian had written a poem about ascending a mountain, and Han Jing said he plagiarized it in front of everyone. But Fan Xian didn't take him seriously. Then Zhuang Mohan took out a scroll he had with him. He wrote exactly what Fan Xian had done. Even Emperor Qing saw it. His face darkened. Guobaoquan was delighted. He took the initiative to report to Emperor Qing. He said that Fan Xian had deceived the world. He's disgraced the Qing scholars. He begged the emperor to punish him severely. Fan Xian was calm seeing Guobaoquan so active. He asked why he was so happy. Why is he so happy? Zhuang Mohan was going to expose Fan Xian in the courtroom. How did he know? He said he just heard about it. Then why did you say so right when I arrived today? Mr. Guo was adamant. He said he'd see my reputation tarnished. I don't know if Guo can tell with his fingers, or is he already in bed with Mr. Zhuang? Fan then said, who says I only have 1 poem to show? He stood in the center of the hall with a wine jar. He asked for ink, paper, and inkstones. Fan Xian may really be drunk, but his soul holds memories of his last life. In ancient times of modern history, Taibai wrote 3,000 poems. Now, Fan Xian has written 300 drunken poems. The more the audience listened, the more they were amazed. It was as if he had memorized all the poems in his head. This also proves how important it is to be able to memorize the 300 poems in your childhood and travel back to the ancient time. In the end, 7 or 8 eunuchs copied it together to keep up with the speed of his memorization, until he was surrounded before dinner. Guobaoquan was still drunk and said, to climb the mountain before dinner is plagiarism. His little fan, the second prince, couldn't stand it. He just recited a famous line from the past. Why would someone like that plagiarize? Then Fan Xian wandered over to Zhuang Mohan. He pointed his nose at him and said, you are a great writer. I'm not as good as him. But when it comes to memorizing poems, he's not as good as me. After that, he fell to the ground drunk. Zhuang Mohan's decades of life have been ruined. Fan Xian was so angry that he vomited blood on the spot. Lu Ryu knew about Fan Xian's activities at the Qing Palace. She treated him like a treasure. When she got home, she brought in a house full of maids to serve him. Do you know what your brother did in the palace? He became a god. Hung is rumored to be one of the 4 great masters. His strength is unpredictable. He starts fighting with Wu Zhu. The destructive power is amazing. After a few moves, Wuzhu purposely used the 4-gu sword stance. To conceal his identity, this aroused Hong Xixiang's spirit of victory. This is already a dead man's sword. He chased after Wuzhu and refused to let him go. This is also a trick to get him out of the way. On the other hand, Fan Xian has been spying from the shadows under Wuzhu's cover. He deliberately lowered his breath and footsteps. He snuck into the Empress Dowager's chambers and took the key from the secret compartment under her bed. After leaving the palace, Fan Xian met up with Qing Yu Nian. He handed the key to the locksmith he'd arranged. In a few minutes, he created a fake key. When Fan wanted to send it back, he saw Li Yunrui. Li Yunrui's maid was bringing a man in black to the palace. The man in black was Zhuang Imo Han. Fan Xian was curious and hid on the roof. He listened in on their conversation. It turned out the princess had made a deal with him. He leaked Yin Bingyun's identity to the Northern Qi, so that Zhuang Mohan could ruin Fan Xian's reputation at the banquet, and Zhuang Mohan spent his whole life in the dark. For his brother, Xian, who's in the dungeon, now Zhuang Mohan has achieved his goal. Shingo is willing to trade Xian for Yin Bingyun's life, but Li Yunrui's plan has failed. This makes him angry. I risked everything to help you and your Northern Qi. I've done you and your North Qi such a big favor, but all I got in return was a promise of peace of mind. Northern Qi owes him a favor. In his panic, he made a noise. The princess's maid discovered him. Soon the two of them were fighting. His kung fu was better than the maid's. He soon gained the upper hand. But it also alerted Yin Xiaoyi. Yin Xiaoyi stood at the highest point. He aimed at Fan Xian's escape route. He fired. The swordsman in his hand shot Fan Xian off the wall. But when he arrived at the wall, Fan Xian was nowhere to be seen. All that was left were broken arrows and torn fabrics. He must have been hit. If there's no blood, does that mean it didn't hurt? My sword will hurt anyone who hits it. Then he went to Guangxin Palace to report to the princess. Judging from the height of the man in black, he decided it was Fan Xian. Li Yunrui was surprised. Fan Xian was drunk at the banquet. He was carried home. It can't be him. But Li Yunrui was still worried. Today's conversation with Zhuang Imo Han was too big a deal. We can't let the news leak out. So he asked Yin Xiaoyi to go to Fan's house to check on Fan Xian. Find the assassin yourself. Kill him for me. Don't light the fire. I was talking to Zhuang Imo Han in the store. He saw them. This is the most enjoyable part of the drama. Fan Xian, with 9 years of compulsory education, he recited the essence of the 5,000 years of Chinese history in one night. And when everyone thought he was drunk, he changed into his night clothes and went to the harem. But on his way back, Yin Xiaoyi's ability to hear voices has been perfected. Just as Fan Xian was about to escape, Yin Xiaoyi shot his soft sword decisively. He shot Fan Xian off the wall. But when he arrived at the wall with his men, Fan Xian was nowhere to be seen. Yin Xiaoyi was confident that, even if the master was hit by a sword, he'd still be injured. So Li Yunrui asked him to find Fan Xian himself. Before dawn, Yin Xiaoyi went straight to Fan's house. Ruorio had waited all night, but Fan Xian hadn't returned. She wanted him to rest. Servant reported that the commander of the Forbidden Army wanted to see Fan Xian. Lu Ruyu was still puzzled. He wants to see Fan Xian so early in the morning. What can he want? Xiaoyi ignored the guards. He's already in the inner courtyard. He's being ordered to raid the house. It's serious. I'm here to visit Fan Xian on the princess orders. Mrs. Lu knows what's going on in the palace. She doesn't dare delay. Lu Ruyu is a bit uneasy, but because of her strong attitude, I brought her to Fan Xian's room. Just before she reached the door, Rua had already closed the door. She was standing outside. Her actions confirmed Yin Xiano's suspicions. She didn't show any mercy. She tried to push Ruoruo away. Ruoruo was hurt by his rudeness, but she still held onto the door frame to prevent him from entering. When they were at a standstill, Fan Xian's voice suddenly came from the room. Let him in. When Yin Xiaoyi saw Fan Xian, he came straight to the point. He wants to check his wounds. Fan Xian knew he didn't have wounds, so he wasn't afraid. He said it was fine for him to check, but he had to make a bet with himself. If he has wounds, he can send him wherever he wants. But if there are no injuries on his body, he'll pay for what he just did. If I'm not hurt, kneel down in front of Ruorong and confess. Why would I bet with you? Xiaoyi said he doesn't need to bet with him. Fan Xian reminded him. Fan Xian reminds him that he's being treated like a servant in Qing. If he dares to make a move, the emperor and the officials will never let him go. I don't care. Even the princess doesn't care. Yin Xiaoyi hesitated when he heard the princess. He's thought it over. He agreed to Fan Xian's bet. If the sword doesn't make a wound, I'll have wasted my bet. If you hit me, even a great master would be unharmed. Fan Xian was waiting for him to say that. Yin Xiaoyi saw that Fan Xian had no wounds. His face was immediately embarrassed. He had to walk out of the room. He knelt in front of Ruoruo and confessed his sins. I'll make amends. Yin, you're the same age. Why don't you stay for breakfast? Then he excused himself to take a rest. He sent them away. He went back to his room. He closed the door behind him. Xian couldn't hold it in either. A mouthful of blood spurted out. 5 bamboos told him Yin Shaoi's words were true. He's the only 9th grade swordsman in the world. He's the only one in the world with a 9th grade sword. Even great masters are no exception. Fan Xian marveled at his luck. Yin Shaoi's sword had hit the key at his waist. When Yin Shaoi first saw it, I'm afraid even iron would have been broken. But the key was unharmed. I can't tell what it's made of. 5 bamboos is concerned about Fan Xian. Why didn't he put the fake back? But Fan Xian says he's in no hurry. He's more concerned about what was in the box his mother left behind. But when Wu Zhu inserted the key and opened the box, his face, always expressionless, instantly tensed up.